Marijuana is an addictive drug which produces in its users insanity, criminality, and death. Marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind. If the hideous monster Frankenstein came face-to-face with the monster of marijuana, he dropped dead from fright.
You know, it's not easy countering 7 decades of propaganda in a 2-hour show, but let's try. It's time for the Russ Belville Show's Reefer Madness Debunked.
Welcome back, everyone. 14 and a half after the hour. And today in Reefer Madness Debunked, we take a look at the widely shared article that I'm looking at the Chicago Tribune called "So You Think Marijuana Isn't Addictive" by Susan Shapiro. The tweet line on this has been why legalizing marijuana will lead to more drug addiction, and I could not let any of this stand without a rebuttal. She writes that in 2014, our country went cannabis crazy, and she knows about the dark side of marijuana because she was addicted for 27 years. 27 years. Oh my goodness. Okay. She says she started to smoke weed at Bob Dylan concerts when she was 13. I saw how it can make you say and do things that are provocative and perilous. I bought pot in bad neighborhoods at 3 a.m., confronted a dealer for selling me a dime bag of oregano, let shady pushers I barely knew deliver marijuana like pizza to my home. I mailed weed to my vacation spots and smoked a cocaine-laced joint with a bus driver when I was his only passenger. Okay, so first of all, legalizing marijuana isn't about letting the 13-year-olds smoke marijuana at the Bob Dylan concerts. Clearly, keeping marijuana prohibited did not stop this woman from smoking marijuana at the Bob Dylan concert at age 13. So I fail to see so far how the solution is any worse than the problem than it solved. But let's go on to this. Let's see what else she says. She said that she says everyone believed you couldn't get addicted to pot. Turns out I could get hooked on carrot sticks. So now you're telling me that it's not the pot, it's the person who might have an issue with it, huh? Okay, I'm with you there. And from this point, she continues on with so many of these cherry-picked statistics with absolutely no context whatsoever. Here's some of the greatest hits, of course. She says 17% of the people who get high as teenagers will become addicted to marijuana. This is that old 1 in 6 teenagers that smokes pot will become addicted. Well, you know how they define addicted? They define addicted as someone who's smoking pot 4 times a month or more as an adult. So what you're saying here is 1 out of 6 kids that smoke pot as a teenager might smoke a joint on the weekend as an adult. That hardly sounds like addiction to me, especially considering watching my dad suffer through alcoholism and speed addiction. I kind of have an idea what addiction really is. She also goes on to say that half of daily marijuana smokers become addicted. Well, again, if your definition of being an addict is someone who uses marijuana regularly, it's no surprise that you come up with a self-serving answer like that. The question is whether or not someone is using marijuana to the point where it is detrimental to themselves and their life. And I won't deny there are some people that end up with an unhealthy dependence on marijuana. But as the author says, those people could have an unhealthy relationship with carrot sticks, with exercise, with sex, with gambling, with all sorts of problems. That's not a reason to criminalize the vast majority of people who don't have the problem. Now, she continues in talking about recovering from her addiction that addicts self-medicate because underlying every substance problem is a deep depression that feels unbearable. Well, for some people that are using marijuana, it's just depression, and they're using marijuana to cope with that depression. She also continues by saying that being drug-free saved my health, marriage, and career. Within a year, my income tripled. Well, gee, what do you know? It's easier to get a good paying job when you're not failing a drug test or not going out for that job because there's a drug test involved. What a surprise. She then talks about how she works with a lot of young people in New York and LA who confess that they smoke a bowl or got ripped and then got in a car accident or fell on the subway tracks or had their wallet or cell phone stolen or they were sexually assaulted or they had a physical altercation that landed them in hospital or jail. And she goes on to mention how a lot of them talk about being cross-faded, which is using alcohol and marijuana together. Very interesting. Okay, so people that use a lot of alcohol get into a lot of these problems, and they might have used marijuana along with it. She brings up 2 deaths in Colorado linked to pot. Yeah, we've talked about those. The edibles, the kid that jumped off the building, and then the guy who was on painkillers, all sorts of other pharmaceuticals, who killed his wife. Hardly credible or compelling reasons there. She says the weed of today is far stronger than the weed of the past. Not true. There was plenty of strong weed back in the day. It might be twice as strong today, but that doesn't mean you're going to get higher off of it. If you're smoking it or vaporizing it, you will stop when you get high. She also says the new edible products are 10 times stronger than a traditional joint. Wrong. Edible products have always been stronger, dose for dose, than anything you can take by smoking, because the conversion of that in your gut, of THC in your gut, becomes 11-hydroxy-THC, which is far more psychoactive than delta-9 THC. It's a little thing called biology, chemistry, and science. All of them are in here. Double the risk of car crash.